Good day to everyone joining us, and welcome to today's Xtalks webinar. Today's talk is entitled, Using a Lab Inventory Management System to Improve Safety and Cost Savings. My name is Candice, and I'll be your Xtalks host for today. I'd like to thank TECHNIA, who develops the content for this presentation. The challenges in the life sciences industry are well known. A constant search for new ways to reduce time to market, decrease launch time of new products, streamline processes, make the packaging process less complex, increase revenues, and cut costs, whilst at the same time meet regulatory demands. These questions are very important and require constant attention, but they can be dealt with more effectively, and this is where TECHNIA come in. Now I'd like to introduce our speakers for today's event. Niklas Lindberg is a sales executive with over 20 years experience in sales and marketing. Based in Stockholm, Sweden, his work with TECHNIA includes helping their life sciences partners turn regulatory complexity into a competitive advantage. Our next speaker is Micke Diepenbroek, who is based in Malmö, Sweden, and has a long history of working in life science R&D and academia, clinics, and industry. She received her PhD in biology from the University Tübingen in Germany in 2014. After that, Micke was working as an academic postdoctoral researcher within biomedical neuroscience and continued as a senior scientist at a pharmaceutical company within drug discovery before she joined TECHNIA as a business consultant. And now, without further ado, I'd like to hand the mic and the presentation over to our speakers, who may begin when they're ready.
Thank you, Candice. So I would like to welcome everyone to today's session, using a lab inventory management system to improve safety and cost savings. As Candice mentioned already, I'm Niklas Lindberg, a sales executive at TECHNIA, a company that paved way for your innovation, creativity, and profitability. We combine industry-leading tools with specialist knowledge so that you can enjoy the journey from product concept to implementation. Our experience makes it possible to keep things simple, personal, and accessible, so that together we can transform your vision into value. One of the big challenges is to understand what IT systems are needed and how they should work together. From TECHNIA side, we often see customers working with PLM or product lifecycle management. There are several other systems, of course, such as electronic lab notebooks, chemical inventory management systems, etc., that fulfill many other purposes. If we could make this work seamlessly together, the users would be happier, the companies would be more efficient and profitable. I hope that this webinar will give you some thoughts on how to start the digitization if you haven't done so yet, or how to extend the functionality if you already have some support systems in place. With that, I would like to welcome today's speaker, Micke Diepenbroek, a colleague with a lot of experience. Take it away, Micke.
Thank you, Niklas, and hello and welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us today here at Xtalks webinar. So yes, as Niklas mentioned and Candice, I'm Micke, and I've joined TECHNIA in August 2019, and I'm bringing 10 years of experiences in life science R&D with me. Within the next 30 to 40 minutes, I would like to give you a brief insight into Industry 4.0, and then we will move to some key business problems when it comes to inventory management, and you will get a short introduction to BioVia SysPro. BioVia SysPro is an inventory management system that was designed mainly for managing chemicals, but it can be used also for management of supplies and also biologics, but here we exclude human samples due to regulations. And I would like to show you how a streamlined inventory management system can be organized and structured, and what kind of benefits does it have for users, but also for the company itself. And then at the end, I would like to finalize it with a brief summary. So, Industry 4.0, I think it's nowadays a well-known term, and it is the fourth industrial revolution within the past 2.5 centuries. And it brings in, for instance, AI, big data, robotics, and this is just the beginning, and there will much more come in the future. And the businesses, they need to adapt to Industry 4.0 approaches and are influenced by a number of key drivers. and they need to change the traditional way. So healthcare-related organizations, they're facing unstoppable pressure nowadays, and on this competitive and also vibrant market. So they have to produce faster. They need to maximize the quality. They keep costs low. They have to drive innovations. And at the same time, they need to address worldwide regulations like SDS management, GHS classifications. So they have to optimize basically their operations and to improve the efficiency. So what do healthcare related organizations do for that? They increase the number of collaborations globally and locally and with outsourced partners, and they also to reduce the time to the market. And here I also brought, beside regulations and outsourcing and cost pressure, I also brought up sustainability, because this is also one of the 7 key drivers nowadays. Because if a company thinks sustainable, companies need to think sustainable, because they need to reduce their CO2 consumption and also the waste, among others. And investment banks see nowadays, they see it as a risk factor if the company doesn't work sustainable. So, but how can you streamline our work processes and focusing on a laboratory environment? Of course, there are different ways, like going digital in a lab with an electronic lab notebook. But in today's webinar, we would like to focus more on an inventory management system, and mainly here on chemicals, to improve safety, health, to reduce costs, and to work sustainable. And before I will move now to the main topic of guilt, it's time for a poll question.
Thank you very much, Micah. Audience members, like she said, there is going to be a poll question, and that's launching for you now. And that poll question reads, do you know always who stores what, where, and how, for which purpose, and how much is left? Audience members, you can now vote in real time any of those 2 options shown here. Yes, we have a system for tracking our chemicals, or no, we are having no system or using Excel files. Once again, that poll question is, do you know always who stores what, where, and how, for which purpose, and how much is left? Audience members, I encourage you to submit your votes right now by clicking on one of those options appearing on your screen. Yes, we have a system for tracking our chemicals, or no, we are having no system or using Excel files. Now it appears a majority of our audience members have voted. I'm going to close the poll now and share the results with you. It looks like a majority of our audience have voted for no, we are having no system or using Excel files at 92%, followed by yes, we are having a system for tracking our chemicals at 8%. Audience members, thank you very much for participating in this poll. Micah, back over to you.
Thank you very much. That's really interesting. And well, then I would like to show you today how you can manage your chemicals without an Excel file and in a streamlined system, and what kind of benefits it brings to you. So when we're talking about lab inventory management system, so what is inventory? Inventories can be chemicals like controlled substances, reagents. It can be biologics like cells, tissues, probiotics that are not only used in life science industry, also in the food industry, and like supplies, like packaging, gloves that we use on a daily basis in the laboratory. But today the focus is really on the chemicals. But what are chemicals and how are they defined, and what are key problems when it comes to managing them? So chemicals, they are defined as distinct compounds or substances, especially one which has been artificially prepared or purified. And I would like to focus on the next slides on the 3 core business problems that I see when it comes to chemical management, which is efficiency, costs, and reduce risks, and increase at the same time than safety. Coming to the first core key issue, efficiency. we all want that everyone in the lab is focusing on the core work, on the research, and not spending too much time on the inventory, on searching, on finding, on ordering. And actually, people can also become quite frustrated if they have to search or wait often for something, and they are blocked in their experiments and projects because they waste time for something that actually can be solved easily. And also, many are not aware that chemical management is not only receiving chemicals and storing chemicals. So it's also important to know the quantity and the location. And one needs to be able to track the chemical flow, and that should be also updated in a simple manner. And also, organizations within life science, they need to address worldwide regulations like the SDS management, GHS classification. They have to report to regulatory agencies, and also the disposal of chemicals need to be handled in terms of health and environmentally friendly. And of course, one can do all this in Excel, but it is much more structured and organized, and most important, it's agile if you have one centralized system. Coming to the next key business problem, it's costs. And I think we can all agree on that efficiency goes in one hand with costs. And you will not only save money, you will save time. Because the lab staff will focus much more on their core work, like the research, as I mentioned already before, and they will spending, for instance, less time on searching the chemicals or linking even the SDS data sheets to the chemicals, because all is all is automatically. And then also the chemicals are much better controlled. So hopefully you have nothing or less or order double, and nothing is standing expired in a cupboard. When something expires, you will get in an automated system, in a centralized system, you will get a notification, and this you don't have, for example, in Excel. And I guess all of you agree that safety is first, and the safety of the employees, the safety of everyone. And which is leading us to the last business problem in this talk I would like to talk to, which is risk. And on the left hand, you see regulatory compliance risk, and EHS, it stands for Environment, Health and Safety, and they are basically dealing on local and federal and international level. And it's a general term used to refer to laws, rules, regulations, professions, programs, and workplace efforts to protect the health and safety of employees, but also the public and as well the environment from hazards associated with the workplace. And here, for example, one important hazards report that may be need for many organizations is, for instance, the Tier 2 reporting. So what is it? The Tier 2 reporting is part of the Emergency Planning and Community Right to Know Act, EPCRA. And EPCRA, it was created in the 80s following a disaster in Bhopal, India, 84, where an accidental release of methyl isocyanate killed or severely injured more than 2,000 people. And EPCRA seeks to not only create contingency plans for emergencies involving hazardous substances, but it also helps to keep the public informed about chemicals that are used at local facilities and the types of safety risks these chemicals pose and the potential for their release to the environment. And these reports, they need to be filled out annually with both state and local authorities, including the State Emergency Response Commission, SERC, Local Emergency Planning Committee, LEPC, and the local fire department. And then, of course, you have also financial and legal penalties for non-compliance. So if in your institution inspection comes in and they are tracking things out, you as a company or as an institution, you can face significant penalties, and if not a shutdown, and then it will become very expensive for you. And on the other hand, we have safety and risk, health and safety risk. And this is for me the most important, because it's the health and safety of employees comes first. And we live in a world where we can browse for everything we want to know. So, and if there's something happening, a chemical incidents like fires, explosion, personal injuries, when you're working with chemicals, and that can even end up also lethal, and then it's getting reported, going out to the news, the company won't have a good reputation. So, and we can prevent all this, like all accidents, by having a control of all chemicals. For instance, when thinking of diethyl ether, similar chemicals, they can form dangerous peroxides over the years that can explode on contact. And this happened actually back in the days in California. So what happened? What has happened here? An undergraduate student researcher was working at the laboratory bench when the apparatus she was using exploded, and glass fragments went into her face and upper torso. She received stitches, so she went to the hospital. She was going to the brought to the hospital, received stitches above her eyes and other treatments for her injuries, and then at the end, and she was released from the hospital the same day. And the explosion was most likely caused because peroxide contaminants in the solvent that were concentrated to the point were unstable. And this solvents she used over time, and then this solvents she used over the time, they were analyzed, and they found that there is an excessive amount of peroxides in. And so how can incidences like this be prevented? And you can manage your peroxide forming chemicals properly. Yes, you can do it also here in Excel, of course, but it's important here. It's important you have a limited purchase. So it's important to store it properly. It's always important to have a date on the containers, and also when you received it, when you open it, you should never use old containers of peroxide formers or containers that are undated. And you should, of course, dispose of all peroxide forming chemicals. And then, of course, you can, it's really important to wear the proper personal protective equipment, to work under a fume hood behind the safety sash, to know where the emergency eye wash is, and to give proper safety trainings to everyone that is starting new in the lab. But, and of course, you as a person, an institute, you can do many things, but a chemical system that will improve the health and safety within the company even more, as you can manage like peroxide forming chemicals properly. So CISPRO, BioVia CISPRO, is an inventory management system, and as I mentioned in the beginning, it's mainly designed for managing chemicals, but it can be also used for supplies and biologics, like excluding the human samples. And it's an easy-to-use system that is delivering all necessary tools to accurately track and report chemicals and supplies, while meeting also safety regulatory requirements. It's including barcode labeling, remote inventory control, and safety data sheet management. And it's also there are also numerous custom configuration options that support your changing and evolving process and workflows. And the system can be configured by site or by business unit, while still maintaining a central database. So how can a streamlined inventory or chemical workflow process can be? BioVia Cispro, here you have an overview, and BioVia Cispro is has a wide range of features to support the various needs of users in order to track the materials from receipt to disposal. In its core, Cispro is designed to provide chemical inventory management, focusing mainly on logistics. It allows labs to better understand what they actually have in-house in real time, how much, where it could be found, when it would be expiring, and so on. But it can be more than just keeping track of chemicals. It has a product-specific SDS management, and it has an advanced printed and emailed reports. And it's not only for chemicals, as I mentioned, it's also handling the biological supplies. So it's really, that's why we talk about an inventory management system. So what are key user benefits then of this kind of system and of this kind of centralized and streamlined system? The capabilities of Cispro provide users of different areas some significant benefits. Thus, professionals working in the EHS department, the Environmental Health Safety Department, will have accurate reports, and it's easier to manage the SDS files and tracking all chemicals. The lab staff, the researchers, scientists, and people that are working in diagnostics also, for example, in clinics, can easily search for what they need, as the inventory is much more visible and easier to access. And thus they can focus more on their core work, and they will be much more efficient, and you will save with the time, you will save time and costs. And the inventory management, especially in bigger companies, have a better overview of preferred vendors, avoiding duplicated orders, and thus reducing costs that are spent, for instance, for duplications. But it has not only like a streamlined inventory management system like Cispro has not only benefits for the users. It has also it will also solve the core business problems that I mentioned in the beginning. Of course, not at once, but if you start to implement this kind of system, you will notice, and it will not take much time. And so here it's efficiency, costs, and safety. And so at the end, so you will increase the efficiency with a centralized system, streamlined workflow, as the focus will be on the research and diagnostic and less on searching and finding. And you will have, through the email notifications, for example, it's much easier to follow up if something is running out of chemical, so you can order in advance and that you're not blocked in your work. Also, as you can control your chemicals better, you will need less space and less space and chemicals, and you will reduce the waste because you have a better shelf life tracking management. And overall, the organization will be able to avoid lab incidences because the chemical workflow and the storage is controlled by one system. And you can print labels with all chemical information when receiving a new one and have an easy access to all SDS files. So with this, I would with this slide, I would like to actually summarize the presentation, and I hope I could give you an overview how the digital movement can change R&D work and improve safety. And this is a strategic initiative that is offering demonstrable operational benefits, and that having an agile lab inventory management system will result in a safety, healthy, and sustainable and cost-efficient product life cycle and work environment in both industry and in academic research, because you will have reduced paper consumption due to, you will have reduced material consumption per unit, you will reduce the hazard chemicals, you will reduce scrap, and all because you have the centralized system, because you can control costs, you can improve environment, health and safety, and you can control the entire inventory workflow. And with this, I would like to thank you, and Niklas and myself, we would be happy to take some question of you. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for that very insightful presentation. Audience members, at this time, we do welcome you to continue submitting your questions or comments right now in the questions window for the Q&A session of this webinar. Now, I've already received some questions, so I'll start with those. The first question here is, what are the report formats available for notifications or timely reports?
Oh, well, that's a really good question. And in this system, you have like CSV formats, but also you can have email links, or email links are available in Spiovia Cispro itself.
Perfect. Thank you for clarifying that. Another question here is, are barcode scanners supported, and if so, which ones?
Yes, barcode scanners are supported, and so it's like any standard barcode reader actually. So also like that is on your mobile phone. So you can basically have everywhere all the time, because usually nowadays people have their mobile phone all the time with them. You can scan and use it to read the location or action or item codes of any chemical or inventory. So yes.
Thank you very much for that response. Again, audience members, we do encourage you to continue submitting questions and comments using the questions window for the Q&A session of this webinar. Moving along to our next question here, can custom attributes be added as well?
Yes. So, yeah, Niklas, please.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so that's possible. Additional fields can be added. You can do this via support request. You could also do it, let's say, on demand using enhancement requests. So that is possible.
Thank you very much for that response. Our next question here is it possible to import chemical data from an existing Excel file?
Yes, that is possible. However, you cannot do it on your own, so it has to be done by our services team.
Thank you very much. And our next question here is there any space restriction in the system? For example, how many chemicals are there for, and how many attachments or files can you put into the system?
Yes.
Okay, so if I you want to take this, Mike, or should I?
You can.
So if I understand it correctly, somebody's wondering if there's any space restriction. So the simple answer here is no. There's no space limit. There's neither a limit on how many chemicals or containers you can create. So you can more or less put limitless amount there. You can also store how many documents you want.
Perfect. Thank you for clarifying that. At this time, the question and answer portion of this webinar we've reached the end of the question and answer portion of this webinar. So thank you both for those really wonderful responses. We hope you found this conference informative. Have a great day, everyone.